Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I'm going to talk about why Marvel is no longer a merit-based company. Marvel Comics, that is. Now, I've already gone over this for a little bit when I talked about the fact that Marvel Comics is experiencing a brain drain because all the people who really should be at the top of Marvel Comics and running the show, the person who should be the editor-in-chief, all of those people who are really excited about comics and who really want to see good comics, all of those people have been siphoned off to work for the movies and for the television shows because they have a bigger audience and they make more money. And so all of those people, those top tier people, have been siphoned off, and they were replaced by people below them who were second tier, third tier people. And the people who replaced them were people who were of lower stature than they were, of course, in the company. And the thing is that none of these people that are coming in to try and replace these people who are moving up are actually merit-based hires. They're not merit-based people at all. And I'd say you could probably take this model and apply it to DC and the other smaller companies as well, but I'm going to focus on Marvel exactly because I know the most about Marvel, and I'm going to use stuff which has been put out there and just been put out there by Marvel themselves or by people who work for Marvel or people who have worked for Marvel. And so the thing is that there was this brain drain. But the people, again, who are being brought in, now these people, they don't have any merit. Now you can just say, well, of course they don't have merit because they're just putting in diversity hires and they're just stacking the deck with far leftist people. But you can't really do that. I mean, they can't really do that. That's against the law. They can't say, I'm going to give you a political ideological test in order to make sure you're a far leftist before I hire you. They can't do that. That's illegal. And to some extent, they're getting rid of the fact that they can say, okay, we're going to hire you because you're a woman. We're going to hire you because you're a certain minority and we're trying to fill slots. They can't do that either. And they realize that because I did a video on Marvel and the positions they're looking to fill, because they have a Disney site where they post all of the job openings at Marvel Entertainment, which is the one that controls Marvel Comics. And at the very bottom of these, and even at the ones for Marvel Studios, they all say that Marvel is an equal opportunity employer. Applicants will receive consideration for employment without regard to race, color, religion, sex, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, or protected veteran status. So it says that at the bottom of each one of these job postings. So they know they can't do this. They specifically know that it's against the law for them to do such things, and even if they did it and hid it, they would still be opening themselves up to being sued at some time in the future, and they just can't have that. So they put this at the bottom, and they say they can't do this. But at the same time, you look at Marvel Comics, and they're just all far leftist ideologues. And that's who's in there. If anybody else is in there, they're not speaking up and they're keeping really quiet because they're pressured to do so. But for the most part, that's the people who are running the show. And how can they stack the deck like that if they can't, specifically by law, hire people that they want to like that they can test out and make sure they're far leftist? And there is an answer to that, and it's been put out there, mostly in the Women of Marvel podcast, I'd say. But there's a few other sources that I'm drawing from in order to show you where and how these things are happening. Now, Marvel is doing just what the far left always does. It's touting the fact that it's following these progressive rules while at the same time getting around the rules while nobody else is looking. That's exactly what they're doing. And we know this. I'm sure you know this. All I got to do is bring it to your mind. You have people like Chelsea Kane getting hired by Marvel because she knows Mark Waid, right? And you have people like Margaret Stohl getting hired by Marvel because she's a YA author. And you get people like, what's the name of the one who's writing Ironheart now? Eve Ewing. You know, she made a stink saying I should be writing Ironheart, and they offered her a job. And that's exactly what it is. You see, these people, they didn't go through a process of hiring. There wasn't a job posting saying there's going to be a competition for this job. No, Marvel went to them and said, hey, would you like to work for Marvel? Because they've actually come out and said this. I mean, especially Margaret Stohl said, you know, I just had someone come up to me and said, do you want to work for Marvel? So you see, there's no competition there. None whatsoever. So these people that they choose to go and offer jobs to, now they can just make sure that they're far leftist before they offer them the job. There's nothing illegal about that. So they can bring in the kind of people that they want there. So that's one level of it. And we all know that that works and that they can get around the rules by doing that. And the second way, well, I covered it a little bit in my video about freelancers, is actually hiring freelancers. And the thing is about freelancers is they don't work for the company. They are contractors. They fulfill a contract. And the way that freelancing works is you don't go out and look for a new freelancer every time you need something done. You don't hire these people on all the time because you're trying to save money or for some other smaller reason, but you don't actually just go out and look for a new person every time. No, you have a list, right? You have a list of people you're normally going to use. And how do you get on that list? Well, of course, you get on that list by being a far leftist ideologue. And they can test out whether or not you are by looking at your work and making sure that you are of this persuasion. And they can do that. And they got no problem with doing that because, of course, these people do not work for the company. They have no employment ties whatsoever. So they can't be sued for stacking the deck with all far leftist people in this list of freelancers because, of course, they're not employees. And none of these rules actually apply. And I would say that is one of the bigger reasons why they're probably depending so much on freelancers right now. Other people would say that, it's because they're trying to chop down the money that they're using to pay these artists, and that I'm sure is a big reason as well. But I think a good key element of that is they can control these people without having to actually employ them, and that gets them around a lot of rules that they would normally have to follow. And the third way, I think this most sneaky way that they would do this, when they actually have to hire someone. They do it in a very specific way. And Sana Amanat has talked about this a couple of times, both in the Women of Marvel podcast, I'd say twice in that, and once in the Women of Marvel panel at the San Diego Comic-Con. She was talking about their mentoring system. And in one of the Women of Marvel podcasts, she was actually talking to a woman who was from, TSN, I think it was? Whatever the sports company is that Disney owns as well, who was also a far leftist company, let me tell you. You listen to some of the things they talk about, and you even got, the guy who's running Disney right now just giving them heat because he's saying to them, no, that's a little too far. But they were talking on this Women of Marvel podcast because they had this woman from that broadcasting company come and talk to the Women of Marvel podcast, and she was talking about their mentorship program and how she runs it there. And Sana Amanat was talking about the exact same kind of mentorship program in some of her Women of Marvel interviews and podcasts, right? So what they do is they are specifically looking in these mentoring programs for people who are of a protected status, we'll call, women or people of color or some kind of minority. They are specifically looking for that. And they can specifically look for that because it's not a job, of course. It's a mentorship program. This is a program that they're putting out, their own supposedly goodwill. But they're using it in order to make sure that you actually are the proper kind of person to get in there. And they are doing it quite specifically, and they've said quite specifically that they want women and people of color and minorities into this program. That's what they're set up specifically for. And at the same time, and especially in the panel from the Comic-Con, there was a very good question, supposedly, that was put to all of the women on the panel, Sana Amanat being among them, and saying, what do I do to try to get into Marvel Comics? What can I do? Well, the specific answer to that was that she and anyone like her needed to go out and start creating things and post them online or anywhere else that they can post them or get them out there. Now, here's your little chain of events that would happen. You have these people. They need to go and make something and put it out there in the world, probably on the internet. Now, once they do that, of course, they have put a paper trail that the people at Marvel can follow to see who exactly these people are interacting with. Because, of course, if they're going to be interacting with anybody like Comicsgate or anyone who's on the right in order to produce their material, well, they're going to be discounted, of course. They're not going to allow them into the mentorship program. So they already are starting to vet these people by just looking at their work. So if you come into Marvel and say, I want to be part of the mentorship program, which is already a stacked deck because they're specifically looking for minorities and people of color and women and all these other kinds of people, and it is not a merit-based system at all, and you come into them and say, I want to be a part of the mentorship program, they'll say, okay, we're going to search out your work and see what we can find. So they vet that person again to make sure that they follow their far leftist ideology. And even if you did get into the program to begin with, let's say you're a black woman and you're an artist and you put your stuff out there, but you were apolitical the entire time. You made sure that you had nothing to do with politics whatsoever. I would say that would be a strike against, first of all. But if you got into the mentorship program, of course, they can let you go anytime they want. If you start showing any kind of right tendency, well, they can get rid of you. Because again, you're not an employee, you're in the mentorship program. And once they've vetted you like 3 or 4 times through this mentorship program, then when they actually need to hire someone, when they actually need to put out a job posting or to get around putting out a job posting, they'll just say, we're just going to hire someone from the mentorship program because they already have a leg up, because they already know what's going on, because they already have all of this experience, and so we don't have to train them. And again, that's how they're stacking the deck from the bottom up. They are making sure that these people are vetted like 2-3 times before they actually can get a job. But unless they are vetted that 2 or 3 times, they can't actually get their foot in the door to get the job. And on top of all that, we know from the statements of the people in Marvel, like Sana Amanat, that the way that they fill up higher level positions is by taking people from the lower level positions and simply advancing them, not by having any competition or any kind of merit-based system again, because they just need to move these people up. So you get yourself in the door by going through this vetting system of 2 or 3 times, and then you can get to be higher up in the Marvel chain, and they just stack the entire company with these people that are far leftist. And again, I'm talking about the fact that Marvel is no longer merit-based, because you see that none of these 3 systems that they're working off of are actually merit-based. So they're drawing in all of these people not from merit, but by giving them ideology tests. They're making sure that they have the correct ideology, and if you can make them a woman and a minority to boot, great. You have a daily double or a trifecta. There you go, right? They make sure that this happens, that this is how they're stacking the deck, and are doing so by getting around the legal rules, by making sure that they never actually hire anyone directly, that there's never actually a competition for the hiring process. And since there is no competition for the hiring process, then it will always be biased, and people of merit will be shut out of Marvel Comics. Anyways, this is just a short video I wanted to do because I had that idea while I was working on my freelance video, which again I'll put at the end of this one if you want to watch that as well. Alright, well, hit like if I give you anything new to think about. Hit the shield in the lower right hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Give me something new to think about. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye.